Season 2 of Overwatch has been quite a freaking struggle. Between getting deranked, players on your team throwing, and absolute menaces running around the battlefield farming you and your team, you need to know the best tanks and supports that will help you climb the easiest in Season 2. So we're going to break down the best tanks and supports to climb the fastest. But first I want to thank the sponsor of this video, GameLeap. Many of you want targeted VOD analysis, in-depth tips and tricks, and meta insights. And for that, look no further than GameLeap, which has over 100 high-quality videos made by top-level coaches and players, including my own videos where I made a 10-video course on the GameLeap website. So if you want to go check it out, use code MILLS in the description right now to save 25% off. Go check it out right now down below. Now, the first tank that we got for you on this list is one that needs no introduction, Roadhog. And I'm not even suggesting Roadhog for the reasons that you're thinking. I understand that Roadhog is meta right now, but the thing that you need to understand about Roadhog is he's always been meta in low elo. Think about it. As a tank, most of the time you have to usher your team and create space, but Roadhog doesn't really care what your team is doing for the most part. In addition to that, you have a one-shot capability and you can heal yourself. You are the most independent character possibly designed, and for the depths of elo hell, Roadhog is gonna hook you straight out of it. Now, it's important to understand that you're not immortal on Roadhog. There's several characters that you have to be careful of when you're going up against them. Doomfist can cancel your breather, which is a really common strategy. He's ultimately waiting for you to breathe in front of him, only for you to cancel it. So even though it seems like an easy matchup on paper, don't allow him free kills on you. In addition to that, as Roadhog, characters like Ana can of course nade you, and if you don't have a Kiriko in your composition, it's not going to be realistic that you're going to be able to get out of that unscathed. Roadhog is a character that every single tank player should have in their back pocket for teams that don't work with you, lack of cohesion, or simply to shut down dive tanks from the enemy team. Roadhog is also just an absolute menace in the meta, so in general, you're setting yourself up for success by learning and practicing with Roadhog. Now, the next character that we got to talk about on this list is actually Ana from the supporting category. And I know what many of you are going to say. You're going to say, hey, Ana is actually not very meta. Ana's pretty weak. Kiriko shuts down Ana. And I agree with all these things. But surprise, surprise, Kiriko is not actually on this list, even though we all know how strong Kiriko is. And that's one of the reasons she doesn't need to be on this list. But the other reason is an aggressive Ana, the proactive Ana, is actually going to be able to carry more low-rank fights than a very, very reactive Kiriko. Think about the utility that Ana provides. Both Sleep and Nade can be game fight winning, but one of the big problems with Ana right now is that good Kirikos, sandbag the utility, are there to shut down any of Ana's value, and then Ana just feels like she's not getting any good amounts of impact through the course of the game. But that's actually only good or very reserved Kirikos, and the lower in rank you go, the more likely that more proactive plays will be successful, especially on Ana. And I would also tell you that Ana can be a character that can really balance damage dealing and healing and look for these pick-off plays. If you're someone that wants to play support, but you want to have a lot of impact in your lower rank games, Ana not only teaches you good mechanical fundamentals and positioning fundamentals, but she has the means to carry games all by herself, and Nano is still incredibly underrated as far as a team fight winning ultimate. Not as flashy as Kiriko Rush, but things like Nano Blade, Nano Death Blossom, Nano Whole Hog, these are still game fight winners, and Ana as a whole is still a very, very powerful character, so don't completely sleep on her. Of course, this doesn't apply for people that are actually playing against hard meta when you climb to Masters and beyond, but for the vast majority of the player base, Ana is still a great pick to play, so don't listen to all these meta tier and tier list videos that tell you that Ana is absolute trash. Might not be true for your rank and in your situation. Now, the next character that we got to talk about is actually Sigma, and Sigma's another little bit of an untraditional tank. There's a lot of characters that can bully up on Sigma, right? Characters like, hypothetically, Zarya. Doomfist has some decent game up against Sigma, but Sigma's another tank that doesn't get the credit he deserves simply because of what is most optimally quote-unquote meta, when the meta isn't really being replicated at the vast majority of ranks. You have to understand that Sigma is really powerful in a poke composition. When your team are playing characters that aid to a poke, characters like Hanzo, characters like Cassidy, Ashe, Widowmaker, and supports like Zen and Ana and Baptiste. All of these supports and DPS are played frequently in your games. And if we think, hey, Sigma's not meta, but that might be hypothetically true in a perfect world where everyone's playing meta characters, but everyone's playing all of these non-meta characters that actually work with Sigma and aid Sigma's playstyle. And you have to understand that if you learn to master Sigma, you can straight up bully the enemy team. Consistent rocks, tons of pressure, balancing your shield with your kinetic grasp. As long as you don't allow your kinetic grasp to get canceled by hooks, punches, or other rocks, and play around cover, managing your cooldowns appropriately, Sigma can just completely dominate a game and bully a game. And I think it's a fantastic tank to have in your back pocket for when your composition favors it, the map favors it, or you're simply not playing against a Sigma counter. Sigma is very, very slept on and super strong going into Season 2. Now, the third support that we actually have for you in this video is actually Mercy. Mercy is in one of her strongest meta positions that we've seen in a long time, and even outside of those meta positions, Mercy is still a very powerful pick at the majority of ranks. Right now, Mercy gets so much value for a number of different reasons. She can enable really, really strong DPS in the form of characters like Sojourn, who's more powerful with the damage boost pocket, and Ashe, who got a huge buff to her ammo reload. Really also alternate picks like Echo, who are very powerful on certain maps. And of course, because Mercy is very elusive, capable of flying around and controlling her body at whim. If you have your movement mastered and you're cognizant of when a Roadhog has hook and where he's trying to hook, and you don't give him any easy hooks, and you also don't line up and play common areas with your team that allow you to get really easily punched by a Doomfist, Mercy can be a very elusive threat. And the difference between a bad Mercy with bad movement and a great Mercy with fantastic movement is a giant chasm that I think is worth grinding for and crossing, because at the end of the tunnel, you're gonna be able to stay alive a lot more, provide so much more value to your team, and Mercy goes from being an easy dive target to someone that basically can never die. Now, next up, we got to talk about another tank on this list, and I think that this tank is really, really underrated and very, very freaking strong. And no, it's not Doomfist. And you might be wondering, why am I not suggesting Doomfist? Well, I think that Doomfist requires a ton of mechanical mastery to grind and learn. Step 1, that's very, very hard. 2, I don't believe that Doomfist will maintain this same state for very long. Because Doomfist is so strong, and especially at the high ranks, completely dominating, Doomfist is a character that I think will not stay in this really ridiculously powerful state. So if you spend all this time and effort mastering Doomfist, and boom, Doomfist is nerfed all of a sudden, I don't necessarily think it's going to be the most reasonable thing to ask of you to just grind Doomfist, unlike Roadhog, where Roadhog could get nerfed by a giant margin and would still be fantastic in low rank. That's the big, big, big difference here. Now, going back to my suggestion, I'm going to suggest to you freaking Orisa. Orisa is an absolute titan at a lot of ranks against a lot of compositions because she can straight up bully characters like Doomfist. She has one of the best tank-to-tank matchups up against the Doomfist, capable of skewing him out of his block, capable of completely bullying him on the front line, can't get CC'd, and if you properly manage your cooldowns, you're just not gonna die on this character. In addition to that, you could interrupt characters like Roadhog, pressure him, cancel his hooks and breathers, but you have to be a little bit careful when Roadhog has that whole hog, so I would definitely suggest tracking that in particular. Orisa is actually just a freaking menace on the battlefield, where the best strategy oftentimes is for enemies to completely avoid you and ignore you, which as Orisa, you do not allow them to ignore you. You make it so they literally cannot ignore your presence, and that's how you get the most impact and value on Orisa. I will say that the only underwhelming aspect of Orisa is your ultimate, but I do think that overall, if you just try to get more guaranteed value with it, use it to close out a team fight that you're already having an advantage in, rather than going for that Hail Mary 5-man slam that kills the entire enemy team, you're going to be able to still get some consistent value with it. So those would be my major suggestions if you want to get value and climb on the tanking role. Now, last but certainly not least, we got to talk about our final support, which I'm going to give to none other than Lucio. Of course, Lucio is not only the meta tier support, but he's also just one of the best supports for learning and grinding the game. Now, the biggest mistakes that I see on Lucio is lazy and unintended ability use. Just amping up pure reactionary and not using it to control the state of the fight, the overall team fight. Speed Boost is one of the most overpowered abilities in the entire game of Overwatch because it allows you and your team to push an advantage and retreat from a disadvantage. And at the end of the day, amp ups to heal should not be done unless your teammates would literally die without it. And even then, the vast majority of the time, you could actually alternate between both heal and speed in an amp up. Think really critically about when and where your team has an advantage in a team fight, when your team would greatly benefit from speed to either run away, reposition, or close out a fight. And I want every single amp up heal to be done with 100% necessity, not pure reactionary, and not if a target is just simply slightly damaged. Amping up heals over and over again turn a Lucio that has all these crazy powers and impact over the course of a round into nothing more than a heal bot. But these are the top supports that I'll give you to climb in Season 2 if you really want to surpass your peak and shoot up to the next level. But let me know down below what is your best tank or support that you've been whipping out to climb and give yourself the best shot to succeed. I'm really interested in your personal preference. But of course, don't miss out on my streams. That will be on my Twitch in the description down below. We've been popping off and doing some really fun ones, so I'll see you next time and catch you later.